Hello, everyone. Welcome to Or This. This is my Monday morning quarterbacking of the scriptures and the sermon for the previous Sunday. And this video is for Sunday, March 9th. Scriptures that were assigned for the day were from Deuteronomy chapter 26, verses 1 through 11. The psalm was Psalm 91, verses 1 through 2 and 9 through 16. The second reading was Romans 10, verses 8b through 13. And the gospel was Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 13. It is the temptation story, the story of Jesus being tempted or tested in the wilderness. So just a note that Psalm 91 is quoted by Satan, or by the devil, I'm sorry. I know, it doesn't matter. They're one and the same. But I'd like to be true to how he was named in the gospel, and he was called the devil. Anyway, the devil quoted from Psalm 91, it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to protect you, and on their hands they will bear you up so that you will not dash your foot against a stone. That is from verses 11 and 12 of Psalm 91. Always good to remember that even the devil knows scripture, but it is a matter of knowing what the scripture actually means in the passage, and making sure that whomever is speaking it is being true to what it actually means and not just twisting it for their own benefit, which is what the devil was doing in the temptation story when he was tempting Jesus to do these various things. Anyway, so I preached on good amount of my sermon had to do with the Deuteronomy passage, and then I made mention of the story of the Jesus temptation towards the end of the sermon. But what I wanted to mention today, because I didn't have really a whole lot that I had gleaned out of here, other than what I said in the sermon that I really wanted to share in a video. But then I was having a conversation with our director of music, Tim, this morning about the hymnody for the first Sunday in Lent. We always have the gospel story that is the temptation of Jesus from whichever gospel year it is. Every first Sunday in Lent we always have the temptation story. Similarly, we often on the first Sunday in Lent sing the song "I Want Jesus to Walk with Me." It's just those two, those two things have been paired, and so oftentimes we do that. And we didn't sing that song this year, which is fine, but I just made mention that it was interesting that we didn't sing that. And so Tim started talking about the song "Jesus is a Rock in the Weary Land," which we did sing. And he said he chose it for this Sunday, but it could also be appropriate later in Lent, because one of the verses talks about Jesus taking a towel and girding himself and washing his disciples' feet, which is what the story that we gather to hear on Maundy Thursday. So the song could also be appropriate later on as we look towards that event. And that's not the only thing that the song mentions, but that is the one kind of Lent-y thing, in addition to raising Lazarus from the dead, that is mentioned in that song. And then I said, without really even thinking about it beforehand, that it made an interesting contrast between what the devil was trying to get Jesus to do in the temptations. Specifically, in the temptation, the second temptation, when the devil led him up to show him all the kingdoms of the world and say, "To you I will give their glory and all of this authority, for it has been given over to me, and I give it to anyone I please," which was a lie. But anyway, And the devil said, if you will worship me, I will give you all the glory of all of the kingdoms of the world. So the devil's tempting Jesus to basically be king of the world, right? And then of course, we sang this as the first hymn, but my point is, we also sang a verse in one of our hymns that talked about Jesus taking a towel and girding himself and washing his disciples' feet. And what a contrast between what Jesus was being tempted to and one of the actions that is that so represents Jesus' approach to humanity. So Jesus didn't come to rule over humanity, and so didn't want to have the glory of being king over all the kingdoms of the world in the way that the devil was presenting it. But instead, Jesus comes as servant of all, in humility. And in the song we sang, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, Jesus literally got into the position that a servant would normally take, washing the feet of their guests, and Jesus washed his disciples' feet. Also, Jesus being the teacher, the disciples being the students, Jesus would have had would be of a little bit higher status, of course, than his students, and yet Jesus gets down and kneels and washes their feet. And that's what we're working with in Lent, is this grasp of what Jesus was showing us about God and how we struggle in grasping that and living in that relationship with that God and being that God's people. Not this God, a God who is Lord over all things. By the way, the devil does not have authority over the whole world. God has authority over the whole world. So the devil's lying when he says he could somehow offer this to Jesus. But the point is, this is what he's trying to offer glory. And Jesus rejects that because he doesn't lord his power over. He doesn't come to lord his power as the Son of God, as God in the flesh over humanity. But he comes lowering himself into the form of a human being and then lowering himself to serve, to wash his disciples' feet, and then, of course, lowering himself to even suffer at human hands and die on a cross in the death of a criminal. So this is the image, the corrective for us, or the image for us to hold in front of us of a God who serves, a God of humility. And this is the example we are being led into relationship with this God. But then as we form relationship with this God, then we also become servants of this God. And so we are called also not to lord things over people, but to humbly serve people. And we had a wonderful presentation by Pastor Mark Williams at our Welcome Lent program after worship this past Sunday. And this is where he talked about two of the parables that are unique to Luke's gospel: the parable of the Good Samaritan and the parable of the prodigal son, and talked about how these fit into the Luke themes of how they reveal the heart of God. And so for us, for our relationship, it is important for us to know what the heart of God is. And Pastor Mark led us in that conversation too about it being a heart of humility and of service to whoever needs, who is in this one who is suffering. Jesus did for us because we were suffering in our sin and separation from God. And so Jesus served us by dying on the cross and suffering. But at the same time, Jesus also in life served by washing his disciples' feet to show us an example, to help us understand. And then, of course, told parables to help us understand as well. The heart of God is a heart of humility, not a heart of lording things over people and having power over, but coming to those who are down, who are suffering, and serving them. So that's what I have for you today. Feel free to share your comments and either on YouTube or on Facebook. And thank you so much for watching. God bless.